All right. Good morning, all. Happy Sunday. We'll get started with class two. Let me go ahead and give Coach Josh the permissions to start the class. All right. Thank you all. And just a reminder, we'll start with the daily stand-up next week. Is that correct, Coach Josh?
Yes, sir.
All right, sounds good.
I don't think I'm sharing the right screen.
And if you don't get off that website, we record, man. Say no.
Brother, I have multiple screens. Just shared the wrong one. My bad.
I'm playing with you, man.
Uh, is this number two? I think this is the right one. Yeah. Cool. So today we're going to be talking about Scrum frameworks, Scrum events, and the Scrum artifacts in detail. We went over them briefly, but we're going to break down each one of these, talk about what goes into it, and what it looks like in the workplace. Our objectives at the end of this class, you will be able to describe the foundation and fundamental components of Agile and Scrum, as well as understand the various Scrum events, who participates, and what the expected outcomes for each event are. So the Scrum framework. Scrum is about empiricism. We look at the facts and observable data. It allows for flexibility when solving complex problems by welcoming change and allowing teams to best figure out how to complete work themselves. Scrum is about iterative, value-based incremental delivery, incorporating regular customer updates and feedback. There are three critical elements central to Scrum. There's the pillars of Scrum, the Scrum values, and the Agile manifesto. Um, Being that this is about empiricism, we have to actually do work to measure how we're progressing with the work. So when you start off originally, like you're starting off on a project, you won't have much to determine like capacity and how much work the team can do. But as you progress, you'll see what the team has completed during each sprint, and that will help you to establish a baseline for which you will use to plan for upcoming sprints. So first, we have the pillars of Scrum. There's three things here: transparency, inspection, adaptation. I just say TIA when I think about the pillars of Scrum because that is the first letter of each word. So transparency is presenting all the facts as is to all parties involved. Be open about what's going on, good or bad. Inspection. Scrum teams regularly take time to reflect at their processes, interactions, product quality, practices, etc., to see how they can get better. Adaptation. This refers to continuous improvement based on inspection. The goal is to grow a little every day. And by keeping these pillars, like that is what, as you can see here from the visual, literally it is the foundation of Scrum. And if you were to label the bottom part, it will probably be trust, because without trust, you can't really have people speaking openly, so you might not have as much transparency. The inspection portion, people may not be able or be willing to talk or vocalize what they're seeing as far as the team, how they're interacting. So trust is essential for all of these different things. Transparency is important because even though we are the ones that own the work, if we do the work, if something is blocking us, we run into an issue, we should raise that up as soon as we realize it. We shouldn't wait until later. So it's just having the confidence to speak up and do what's best for the team. Um, that's essential. So those are the main things that enable a Scrum team to work as a Scrum team. Scrum values. So there are 5 different values: courage, focus, commitment, respect, openness. And I remember this one by Corf. So CCORF. That helps me remember the Scrum values, or at least what the first letter for each is. So courage, that is saying that the Scrum team members have courage to do the right thing and work on tough problems. Focus, everyone focuses on the work of the sprint and the goals of the Scrum team. Commitment, people personally commit to achieving the goals of the Scrum team. Respect, Scrum team members respect each other to be capable and independent people. And openness. The Scrum team and its stakeholders agree to be open about all the work and the challenges with performing the work. The Scrum values pretty much talks about like how the team works together and some of the various outputs. So courage, um, we have to do what is right, even though it may be difficult. It may not be an original plan. It may cause us to have more conversations, but it takes courage to do that. Focus. We don't want ourselves or our team members like working on other tasks outside the sprint, ideally. And if we do have something that comes up, then we should put that in our plan and we should plan for that work, or we should trade off something that is of similar size in the sprint. Like we have to keep our focus intact, and if not, we can readjust, but it has to be done with the full team in mind. Commitment. Even though we always talk about the Scrum team as a unit, it takes the individual members of that unit to commit together to build that unit together. So, as a team, when we come together, we have conversations and we reflect. We might say, "Hey, you know what? I could have done better with the testing portion of this." But anybody from outside the team just said, "Oh, you know what? Our team, we missed something in testing." We don't call out any individual members. But that's where the commitment comes in. We have the teams back, but at the same time, we are open about what's going on, and our commitment level is all the same. Respect. Each team member should be given the respect as far as being a functioning part of the team. We all have different roles that we play, but each one is just as important as the others. And so we have to have that mutual respect, professionally and personally as well. And finally, openness. Um, Transparency again is like a key component, and people have to be open. They have to speak candidly. As long as it's not a personal attack, you want to keep it focused on the conversation or the problem, and help your team to realize like we're not here to push personal agendas or anything like that. We just want to see the team succeed as a group, and so we have to be open about not only what we're doing, how it's going, what we think we can do to get better. And we have to have those conversations with the people who are actually involved in the project as far as having some financial stake in it as well as the outcome. Do we have any questions at this point?
Nope, all good.
Cool. Keep pushing. Agile Manifesto. So there are four things that are in the Agile Manifesto, and unfortunately, I don't have a cool way to memorize these. But the first is individuals and interactions over processes and tools. So sometimes in some organizations, it's seen as the processes and tools used to do things are like the essential things, but in Agile, we know that it's the people and the interactions those people have that actually get projects done and with quality. So that's why the emphasis is placed on individuals and their interactions over processes and tools. So working product over comprehensive documentation. This talks about pretty much like Scrum itself, as far as we get a piece of functionality delivered in each sprint ideally, as opposed to in a waterfall methodology where before any work is done, we have to have all the requirements mapped out. We have to have all the functionalities thought about. We have to have all of that documented. And not just for requirements, there's business requirements documents, functional requirement documents. So pretty much they're very similar, like but it just it exhausts absolutely everything. In Agile, the perspective is the person interacting with the product. In Waterfall, it's actually the system itself. So we know we have user stories in Agile. In Waterfall, they have requirements. So in our user stories, we talk about the different person that's going to be interacting with the system, and it's the opposite in Waterfall. We actually talk about the system and how the person interacts with it. So as opposed to having user stories, their stories are written from the perspective of the system. And it'll say the system shall. Customer collaboration over contract negotiation. So this is saying we need to keep our stakeholders and the people that are financing the project, that have some actual stake in the project, we need to collaborate with them throughout the process as opposed to just during the contract negotiation portion. So they would probably be involved during requirements writing and the waterfall process, but they would not be as involved during the development process, integration process, testing, and so forth. And so when they see the product again, it probably would be further down the line until the product's been developed. So a lot of things could have changed in between the time that they gave the requirements and the time that they got the fully functioning product. Because even though there will be milestones along the way during the development process, they're never brought in to see those. They only see them when the fully functioning product has been pushed through and completely produced. So that's why customer collaboration, getting their feedback early and often, is preferred over contract negotiation, because things can change, especially when you're working on something that's innovative and new. You more than likely aren't going to know everything that's going to be a component of the system or what it should look like. As things evolve, you can let the team know, and in the agile space, we can actually incorporate that feedback real time into the project. In waterfall, it would require going back to prior states, and it would require a lot of rework and ultimately a lot of money wasted, essentially. Responding to change over following a plan. So, like we just mentioned, sometimes things change. Like we find out new information. We find out like our original plan doesn't exactly meet the goal that we were thinking, and this is from the side of the stakeholders. So, being able to respond to changes is a higher benefited item for teams in Agile Scrum as opposed to following a plan. If we're revamping something that's already been done and we know everything that's going to go into it, then maybe the waterfall methodology might be most beneficial for that team. But like we said, when we're doing something innovative and new, we're learning as we go along. Agile is more than likely going to be the best bang for your buck, and also help you to alleviate waste as far as resources. So there's 12 agile principles.
Hold on, Coach Josh.
Um,
Do you mind if we go
yes,
back?
sir. Yeah, sure.
Team, I want us to just confirm that we understand this. Once again, this is our second time looking at the Agile Manifesto. And I know Coach Josh gave a great analogy, but I want to put your mind in another mindset, in another analogy. Imagine there's two different home builders, two different people that's about to buy a house. One, they're very experienced. This may be their third, fourth home, and they know exactly what they want in their house. The other, this is maybe a newlywed couple, just fell in love, still getting to know each other, and this is their first house they moved into together. The reason why that agile methodology is more important and makes more sense to the latter, that newlywed couple that don't understand each other, that is making this house building process more complex. The reason why agile may be better for them is because many of things. They may at first think that they want their walls white, then all of a sudden they want their walls gray. If they wait until the end, it's going to cost way more money, like Coach Josh mentioned, because their contractors are following a plan. They're reading that comprehensive data. It's a whole bunch of that contract negotiation as opposed to customer collaboration. They're just doing everything on the right hand side. But so it wouldn't work for them because at the end of the day, it will cost them more because they'll be rebuilding that house again and changing everything again after everything is done. If anybody's purchased a house, they'll understand that as soon as you picked everything out, your light fixtures, your appliances, everything in between, you can't go back and speak to your builder again. They'll call you once your house is done, and that's what it is. The reason why I say that is you just want to understand that this is the same process, but because the mindset of the end user the customer, it could be two different ways you can work on something if you don't understand what you desire at the end. That original couple that they've been in 2, 3 houses before, they know for sure they want a 2-car garage. They know for sure that they want their walls blue because it matches with all their furniture. They know everything. They know all of their end requirements. That family, that couple is okay with the waterfall process because at the end of the day, they want that plan followed to a T. They want to continue to negotiate with their contract. That comprehensive data doesn't matter to them because they know what that working end product will look like. And last but not least, they don't need much interaction. They can just get through that process. So I hope that helped you understand more about, like I said, the same type of project but different mindsets, different mentalities. It's the same thing when it comes to a scrum team. If a scrum team is a novice team, a team that never worked on, say, if you're working on a application to help your organization be more efficient. If your developers never worked on something like this, Agile is the way to go. Why? Because they need to continue to learn. They need to continue to adapt. They need to continue to adjust. It's going to be like a lot of changes. But if your development team have worked on something like that numerous times, of course, that waterfall option may be a little bit more efficient, cost wise and time wise. So keep in mind, it all depends on that team, the cohesion of the team, what they worked on in the past. Last but not least, the end user, the customer understands exactly what they want as well. So as long as both of those connect at the end, it's blue oceans. But if they don't, once again, it'll be a little bit more of a triage phase. So agile is the way to go. Does that make sense, everyone?
Yes. Quick question. In your analogy, the homeowners, of the older couple who've been with each other, that's the waterfall process, and then the younger couple, that's the agile process.
Correct. Because once again,
Okay.
the older couple, they've been in 4 or 5 homes. They understand that no, we want a 2-car garage. We don't want a 1-car garage. We understand that they know everything they want. So at the end of the day, they can follow a plan. But that younger couple, because they're so indecisive, they want the developers, they want whoever's building that house to be able to respond to change quickly and swiftly. Oh no, I meant that. I said I want that. No, I want stainless steel appliances. I didn't mean to say I want black. Oh yeah, I said no. I didn't want a 2-car garage. I wanted a 1-car garage so I could have more square foot for an extra bedroom. Oh, I said I wanted brick brick in the front. No, I meant that I wanted, the stone front. Does that make sense?
Got it. I'm following you.
Cool. Any other questions, everyone?
No, sir.
Cool.
So over to the 12 agile principles. First, satisfy the customer through early and continuous delivery of valuable software. Next, welcome changing requirements even late in development. Third, deliver working software frequently. Fourth, business people and developers must work together. Fifth, build projects around motivated individuals. Give them the support they need. Trust them. Sixth, the most efficient and effective method of conveying information is face-to-face conversation. Seventh, working software is the primary measure of progress. Eighth, sponsors, developers, and users should be able to maintain a constant pace indefinitely. Ninth, continuous attention to technical excellence and good design. 10th, simplicity. The art of maximizing the amount of work not done is essential. 11th, the best architectures, requirements, and designs emerge from self-organizing teams. Finally, the team reflects on how to become more effective and adjust its behavior accordingly. So these are 12 different things that we want teams to do. We want to happen in Scrum. Pretty much it's when you look at it from a high level at all of them, it's pretty much just saying allow the team to be who they are, allow them to figure out the best way to do the project as they're the ones that will be completing the work. Like as opposed to having someone micromanage and tell them exactly how to do stuff and what it should look like. Allow them to figure it out. Pretty much it seems like a better way of working, of trusting the individuals doing the work as opposed to just using them as the labor portion. You also want to deliver working software, and you want to do it as often as possible. Like the whole project doesn't get done at once. It'll be done in phases. And that's regardless of whether you're doing agile or waterfall. So if we already know it's gonna happen in steps, why not get feedback during each of those steps as opposed to waiting until the end? Um, Ideally, agile is supposed to make complex things simpler, or at least the way that we go about solving those complex problems simpler. Any questions about the agile principles, what they stand for?
I have a question about us. Principle number 4: business people and developers must work together. When they're working together, do we like MC that situation, or do we connect them, or they connect their themselves and work together that way?
That's a great question. So typically when we're saying the business people and developers must work together, if you're talking about internal to your organization, the business people will be like the people that work on the product side. So your product owners and the different people involved on that side. So there may be one specific product owner to your team, but you may have to interact with other product owners who are working on different components that are also integrated with your work. And typically they'll be involved in like the different Scrum ceremonies that they're needed for. So your PO will be at planning, daily stand-up, retro, backlog refinement, all of those meetings. If you have someone above them, you might just invite their manager to like the sprint review so that you can see what has actually been done. If you have any questions, then your PO may reach out to them prior to that. But you would know who these people are, and your job is to make sure that they have the calendar invites for those different Scrum ceremonies. And sometimes to protect their time, you can say, hey, you know what, we don't need you for this upcoming refinement, but we do have a few questions potentially in the next refinement. So yeah, we do kind of manage that, but it's typically already in place. If your stakeholders are outside or external, then you might be a little bit more involved in making sure that they have the various Scrum ceremony invites and so forth.
Yeah, and
Thank you.
I add based upon my experience as well. Thank you for that, Coach Josh. Yes, like Coach Josh mentioned, you'll have, if we remember from last week, we have 3 different roles. We have us, which is the Scrum Master. We have the development team, which is the team that's working on whatever software or product that that we're scrumming for. And so then of course you have your product owner. That product owner, he represents the business people, and sometimes he comes to the meeting with the voice of the customer, VOC, because he listens to he's talking to a lot of your C-suite managers. He's speaking to customers, taking surveys, or another team is bringing surveys to him or her, everything in between. And with all that information, that PO, product owner, is bringing that insight back to back to the team, back to the Scrum team. And so then when he or she brings that information back, that's how we continue to build out our product backlog. And if it's an emergency, we'll go ahead and pop it into next sprint. We know, of course, once the sprint started, don't forget it's an anti-pattern to add extra actions into the current sprint. Say we're in sprint 2, and all of a sudden the PO says, "Hey, we need this." As a scrum master, your goal is to push back and say, "Hey, is there any way we can put that in sprint 3? It literally starts next week. As we know, we run 2-week sprint. But if it's something that it's super urgent, this is going to make or break the company, then sometimes we can make an exception. But it's a one time, you want to enforce it. Hey, this is a one-time scenario, and really make sure you don't make it a habit, because somebody that's on the development team will have to switch gears. Okay, instead of me working on this action, I'm going to swap this action out for this emergency action that the product owner just brought into my attention. So once again, it can get done, but you don't want to make it a pattern. But at the end of the day, the PO usually represents the business people. But sometimes, like Coach Josh mentioned, the whole team may have a connection with, whoever that business person is. But for the most part, it's the product owner brings those actions to the team. And so then we work together to get it done. Any follow-up questions?
Yes, question. As you said, you don't want it, you wanted to push it back to the next sprint. If that does happen, like, who's responsible for that? Is that our responsibility to make sure stuff don't when you need to update stuff? Is it our responsibility to let the team know that this should already been done, or that the product's owner responsibility to really fine tune what's supposed to be in each sprint?
So just like Coach Josh mentioned, we have the 3 pillars: TIA, transparency, inspection, adaptation, or adaption, either however you want to say it. So that product owner will bring it to the attention of everyone. Product owner won't just come to me by myself. Hey, Brett, unfortunately, we have to change. No, they're going to come to the daily stand up or some meeting that everyone's in, and they're going to let the team know what's going on. The team will be able to tell them, okay, cool, based upon what you're saying, we can do it. Or based upon what you're saying, unfortunately, it's going to have to go in sprint 3. So everybody's transparent with everyone. Nobody's scared to talk because it's a safe space.
Appreciate you.
Okay. Just making sure that I handle that for you. You had any other questions?
Everything's smooth. Appreciate you.
Okay. Perfect.
Awesome. Okay. So Agile versus Scrum. Agile is a methodology. It's a set of principles. Scrum is a framework. It gives teams a process to complete work. There are several other Agile frameworks. Scrum is used more than the other methodologies combined. So Agile is where we focus on the individuals and interactions. In Scrum, we want to focus on constant communication. In Agile, we have working software as the primary measure of success. In Scrum, we want to have working software at the end of every sprint. In Agile, we have customer collaboration. In Scrum, we have constant feedback. And in Agile, we respond to change. And in Scrum, whenever required is when we will change. Ideally, once the plan is in place, like Coach Bridges mentioned, we want to follow that plan as far as the sprint. But if trade-offs need to happen, then we do have the capacity to do so. Just after having conversations about what can be traded off on. So the Scrum events, we have the sprint, which encompasses all of the Scrum events. We have sprint planning, which is the daily Scrum, which happens every day except for when we have sprint planning. The sprint review, where we finally look at the increment delivered during the past sprint. The sprint retro, where the team comes together and they talk about what happened during the past sprint. And they figure out if there's something they can improve on. And it's not an official Scrum event, but it is an essential part. Product backlog refinement. This has to happen before sprint planning, because if not, sprint planning can turn into product backlog refinement with the team trying to get clarity about user stories, implementation, and what may have you. But that all should happen during product backlog refinement. Coach Britt.
Yes, sir. So everyone, I hope you're understanding that everything we're pretty much going through, it's literally an extension of what we said from the first day. The daily state, I meant the Scrum Guide 2020 and the Agile Manifesto. None of this should be new to anyone, but this is essentially what we do. If you think of all these things, all these ceremonies that's on the board right now, this happens in 2 weeks because this is the typical time of a sprint journey. After that 2 weeks is done, we start back from the beginning again. So, like I said, if anything's not making sense, please speak up right now because it's only going to continue to build on each other. These concepts are going to continue to build on each other. But this is the core essentials of what we do as a Scrum Master. Any questions?
No, sir.
All right. Last but not least, as mentioned, some of these ceremonies we will be imitating throughout this class. As mentioned, next week we will start doing the daily scrum. So everybody please be prepared and continue to read up on that daily scrum because everybody's gonna have a time to turn to talk about what did they do last, what do they plan on doing right now, and if they have any impediments, any blockers, because we would like, if we can, to help you get around or remove those barriers from your success. There you go, Josh.
Sprints. So the sprints themselves are time boxed between 1 and 4 weeks, but most commonly they're 2 weeks long. It's a period where a Scrum team produces an increment of high value work. A new sprint starts immediately following the end of the current sprint. So if our sprint ends on Thursday, Friday morning, we would have our sprint planning, and that would be the start of our new sprint. All the work needed to achieve the product goal for a sprint is completed within the sprint. Sprint planning. So subjects covered during sprint planning. Why is this sprint so valuable? So PO will present how the product they are developing can add value with their current sprint. The Scrum team works together to create a sprint goal that will communicate what value will be added to end users and or stakeholders in the current sprint. What can be done this sprint? The developers select items from the product backlog that will be completed within the sprint, deciding amongst themselves who will do what. Empiricism, capacity, definition of done are key components for accurate sprint forecast, as well as definition of ready. How will the chosen work get done? Developers plan work necessary to complete PBIs selected, ensuring they will meet the definition of done established by the team, often done by breaking down selected PBIs into work items of 1 day or less. And the sprint goal, product backlog items selected for the sprint, and the plans for completing the work are referred to as the sprint backlog. Daily Scrum. This is a chance for the team to inspect the progress they have made towards the sprint goal and adjust if needed. The event is held at the same time and place daily to reduce complexity, and it's time box of 15 minutes. If you're online and you're fully remote, then you would just use a reoccurring Zoom meeting. So the same Zoom meeting link would be used for every daily stand-up as opposed to having the same room that we would meet in. The daily stand-up is only mandatory for the development team. The PO and Scrum Master will only answer the 3 questions that they contribute as a developer. But I have, in my experience, the POs do like to give their updates to the team. So they'll say, hey, you know what, this is what I've been working on. I've been working with this stakeholder about that story or whatever to get more clarity. And they'll just give the team updates about what they're working on, if they have any updates from their end. But the only people that are required are the development team. The Scrum Master can facilitate the meeting, ensuring all development team members answer the questions and remain within the 15-minute time box. Typically, daily Scrum looks like, for me anyway, first one onto the meeting, greet everyone by name as they come into to the meeting. Once everyone's there, go ahead, share my screen, sharing our Jira board, making sure like I'm the one that's controlling the board. So as I select each member's name, they will go ahead and answer the 3 questions. Make sure that everyone has a chance to speak. If something is running over, I've coached my team to say, hey, you know what, we are self-organizing. If you have something that you want to talk about in a little bit more detail, you need to go ahead and say, let's parking lot this. It shouldn't be a Scrum Master responsibility. So pretty much the team members themselves will say, hey, you know what, can we parking lot this? Or if it's running over, someone else will be like, should we parking lot this? And we will. Yeah, that's pretty much it. Just make sure that happens and keep it within a 15-minute time box. If there is anything else that needs to be discussed, ask the team members who needs to be a part of that conversation so that other people who aren't required to be there can drop if they want, or they can stay for the conversation if they think it might be beneficial to them. But just making sure it stays within that 15-minute time box. If you notice, it does not say that the Scrum Master is required to be there. So as your teams mature, maybe you're shifting or preparing to shift from one of the teams you're supporting to another team, and they haven't determined who the Scrum leader is going to be for the team you're leaving yet would be. You might say, hey, you know what, guys, I won't be here. Can we take turns alternating who will facilitate the daily Scrum? And they've been a part of daily Scrums in the past because you've been there as a Scrum lead. And so they should know, like, hey, you know what, greet everyone as they come in, share the board, make sure everyone has a chance to answer the 3 questions, keep it within the 15 minutes, and parking lot if necessary. Daily Scrum is supposed to be really simple and not encompass everything that the team discusses during the day, but it should just give us a high level overview and let us know where we're going and if we need to readjust. Sprint review, also called sprint demo. The Scrum team comes together with stakeholders to review and demonstrate the results of the sprint, the product created. Progress towards the product goal is discussed. The Scrum team and stakeholders then provide feedback and discuss what should be done next and adjust the product backlog if necessary. It's time box of 4 hours for a month sprint or for an hour per week of the sprint. So in 2-week sprints, you would have up to 2 hours to allocate for the sprint review. The team decides if a weekly or bi-weekly session works best for them. And in all the cases that I've been in, we only had one sprint review, and that was held right before the retro, essentially. Note, this is not a presentation, no PowerPoint, just working functionality. So maybe in one of your test environments, you would actually walk through the website. If it's an app, you would actually go through the app and show what would happen and what has changed there. The sprint backlog items that have not 100% been completed and accepted by the PO are considered incomplete and are not demonstrated, and they go back to the product backlog, the bigger backlog, not the sprint backlog. The sprint retro is considered by many as the most important. Yes, Coach Britt.
Sorry about that, Coach Josh. If you don't mind going back one time, because I want to give an example of that team. What's really important, and I hope you not the one you just went, the one you were just on. What's very important about this is this last line. So it doesn't even matter. And I had this scenario come up for me about 2 sprints ago. It doesn't matter if something is 95% done. Like literally all the work's done. The only thing the developer has to do is document. Hey, the work is done. We just got to document how we did it. Team, what's your thoughts? Is that card done or is it not done? Does anybody have an answer?
Are you asking us? Can you repeat it, please?
I said, say if you're working with a developer, say if a developer is working on a card and it's 95% done. Literally, they've done all the work. The only thing they have to do is document. Documentation means write down exactly how they got to the end solution. Does that mean that card is done or it's not done?
I say you're not done because you said 95%.
That's correct. You're not done until you're done. The card has to be, not only does the work have to be done, the documentation has to be, everything has to be done. I don't care if something's 99.3% done. The only thing I have to do is just put a dot at the end. I'm being a little technical, but at the end of the day, I hope you get the point. Team, and once again, this team is self-organizing. So if the developer says he's done, he's done. If the young lady developer says she's not done, she's not done. At the end of the day, it's all about listening into your team and understanding, having a pulse on your team at all times. That's really what it's all about. You're not here to tell them what to do, but as we talked about in the first class, you're the conductor. If you ever looked at a symphony, you're the person in the front, just making sure everybody is doing what they have to do. You're kind of guiding, but you're not forcing, if that makes sense. It's a big difference between guiding, coaching, as opposed to forcing. Just want to make sure we lock in on that, and just we understand that the developers will let us know when they're done. And it's all about, and now you see how everything's built on each other. That's why trust is important. That's why transparency is important. That's why it's good for each other to inspect each other. We self-organize. That's why all this is vital, because if you don't have that foundation of trust, then none of this will work. Say if you have a developer that's lying, yeah, I'm 100% done. Then all of a sudden they move the card to done and it's not done. That's going to cause a rift in the team. But thankfully, the team understands and acknowledges that we're a scrum and we could be 100% real with each other, and there won't be any pushback. There won't be any penalty, because at the end of the day, we are all on one roller coaster going to one destination together. And we want to get the best bang for our buck, the most premium product that will last for a lifetime. Thank you.
So the retros, considered by many as the most important Scrum event, the retro is a chance for the team to inspect and adapt openly, as well as a chance to make plans that will increase team effectiveness, product quality. The Scrum team looks at how the sprint went, looking at what went well, what didn't go well, and what we can do to get better in the following areas: individuals and interactions, our processes and tools, our definition of done, or our definition of ready. The things the team feels that will have the largest impact, and plans to implement the top change in the upcoming sprint. The retrospective is time blocks of 3 hours for a 1 month sprint and less for shorter sprints. Using icebreakers and retro activities that will engage team members will lead to more candid conversations. So typically, you don't want to just jump straight into the retro board. You can. Sometimes your team is like, that might work for them, but in my experience, try to do something kind of fun. So that's where we pull in the Kahoot or a cool question, allow people to share there, and then go to the retro board. I also, before I pull up the board itself, after we do our activity, I will look at our sprint report or our burn down chart. And so we can see how we progressed over the sprint. We can see if we met our goal, if we exceeded our goal, or if we didn't. I'll allow the team to say, hey, you know what, give them a few minutes to talk about anything as far as sprint work that they want to talk about. Maybe somebody will be like, hey, you know what, we estimated this as a 2, but when I actually started working on it, it probably should have been a 5. There were a lot of different components we didn't think about, blah, 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 and just give them that, not only the space to talk about it, but also to have the metrics right there in front of them to drive the conversation. But yes, the retro is where a lot of the team improvements comes from. The product backlog refinement, PBR is the act of breaking down and further defining product backlog items into smaller, more precise items. This is an ongoing activity to add details such as description, order, and size. This is not an official Scrum ceremony, but is an effective work session. Product backlog refinement is most effective when the entire Scrum team comes together to discuss and come to a consensus on product backlog items. So questions will be asked by the team, and typically the questions come in from people based on their perspective, so UI, back end, QA, but that conversation will help us to figure out how we can estimate this as a team. So maybe the UI figures out there's not a lot from their end, back end, not a lot, but QA, there's a couple of different flows that they would have to test this piece of functionality with. So they decide, hey, you know what? Overall, we think a 3 would work as a team for this story's estimate. And so backlog refinement, it really helps the team to come to a consensus about estimates and such. That's fine. Nope, we have one more, or at least one more. All right, so the Scrum artifacts. It is the information used by Scrum team and stakeholders to understand what is being developed and what was done to create it. They represent work or value. Create represented work or value delivered. Scrum artifacts aim to increase transparency of vital information. Each artifact has a commitment tied to it. So product backlog is an artifact, and a commitment from there is a product goal. The sprint backlog is an artifact, and the commitment from there is a sprint goal. And the increment itself is a artifact, and the commitment is the team's defined definition of done. So the product backlog. Product backlog is an emergent ordered list of what is needed to improve the product. It is a single source of work undertaken by the Scrum team. It's owned and managed by the product owner. This is the wish list of features and functionalities of the product being created or enhanced. The PO is the only person that can change the product backlog. They alone prioritize user stories based on the value added to the business. The product backlog is where the development team pulls the user stories they will work on in the upcoming sprint. User stories and the product backlog should meet the definition of ready and be able to be completed in one sprint before they go into the sprint backlog. The highest value, properly groomed user stories are the first selected for the sprint. User stories are sized by the development team as they are the ones that will be doing the work. The Scrum Master and PO only estimate if they are doing work during that sprint. Product backlog commitment, which is a product goal. The product goal describes the future state of a product, which can serve as a target for the Scrum team to plan against. Product goal is in the product backlog. The rest of the product backlog emerges to define what will fulfill the product goal. Product goal is a long-term objective for the Scrum team. They must fulfill or abandon one objective before taking on the next. Sprint backlog. The sprint backlog is composed of the sprint goal, the product backlog items selected for the sprint, as well as an actionable plan for delivering the increment. It is a highly visible, real-time picture of the work that the developers plan to accomplish during the sprint in order to achieve the sprint goal. It's owned and managed by the developers. This is the plan of action for the upcoming sprint. The plan is not set in stone. It can be adjusted as needed as information is received, but it is less than ideal. But if needed, it can happen. The sprint backlogs commitment, which is a sprint goal. Sprint goal is a single objective for the sprint. Although the sprint goal is a commitment by developers, it provides flexibility in terms of the exact work needed to achieve it. The sprint goal also creates coherence and focus, encouraging the Scrum teams to work together rather than on separate initiatives. The increment. An increment is a concrete stepping stone towards a product goal. In order to provide value, the increment must be usable. More than one increment can be created in a sprint, and work must meet team's definition of done to be included in an increment. Sprint goal, product vision. So the sprint goal is a single objective for the sprint. The sprint goal also creates coherence and focus, encouraging the Scrum team to work together rather than on separate initiatives. It's limited to one sprint. Product goal. Product goal describes a future state of the product, which can serve as a target for the Scrum team to plan against. This is a long-term objective. And then the product vision. This is a longer-term aspirational state for your product. your product vision may be gradually achieved through completed product goals. In reality, the product vision will always be evolving, and this is our long-term objective. Do you have any questions around this?
No, but I have a quick question. This is about the whole process. Like, is there any time that you would use like the same, I guess, the same information for another sprint? What I'm saying, are sprints interchangeable, or do they change all the time?
What do you mean by interchangeable?
I mean, can you use one sprint for another project, or is if you use one sprint that time, that's the last time you're gonna use that?
So the stuff in the sprint is going to be the user stories. And so once the user stories are done, then we've achieved them and we don't work on them anymore. And if they're not done, then they go back to the product backlog, and they're selected based on team capacity and priority. So the user stories are unique to each team that's working on it. So other teams won't be able to use our user stories in their sprints because they'll be working on different components. And there may be other teams that have like tasks that they're supporting for some reason. I'm running into this right now that two of my teams are actually working on the same like web page right now. And so one of them will actually make change. It's happened in the past sprint. One of them made changes and the other one wasn't aware of it, but they were both working on this page at the same time. And so we realized that we need to have conversations about when somebody's working on a page and how long they're going to be working on it, as well as what they're working on within that page. But you don't have to worry about another team typically working on the same exact stories. And the sprint backlog itself is based on what the team actually can achieve and has actually completed already within that sprint. So you shouldn't see repeat user stories if they've already been completed. You would only see those stories again in another sprint if they have not been completed or were not accepted by the PO and had to move back from the sprint backlog to the product backlog. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Any other questions?
No.
Okay. That was the final slide. So that is all we have for the lecture portion today. Coach Britt, did you have anything you wanted to mention before we jump to a break?
That works for me.
Okay, it's 10:02 now. Let's jump back on here at 10:15 if that's okay with everyone.
Thank you. Sounds good.
Sounds good. Oh, cool.
Cool. See you then.
Right, everyone, are we back?
If you're here, can you give us some kind of reaction or let us know that you joined back from break, please?
Yo, I'm here.
Cool, thank you. Abla, thank you. Coach Bro, I think we can go ahead and get started.
All right. Perfect. Just want to confirm the PowerPoint. Did you finish that up?
Yes, sir, we went through the PowerPoint completely.
Okay, cool. The next thing that we have planned for today's class is would love to continue to help everybody, kind of build on their knowledge. So we have a vocab sheet with like some of the top terms that will be coming into the top terms that we'll be, hearing as we go through our agile journey. So, if everyone can put their email address in the WhatsApp group, this will be part of our homework for the next week. Also, just by a show of hands, how how's everybody's progress been over the last week? I mean, we'd love to kind of go by person by person. I know some of us was a little late, but and once again, we have been recording, so you'll be able to look at the playback. And if you have any questions, please go ahead and reach out in the chat. But I want to start with you, um, Andre. How's your progression been? And once you're done, please pass the ball to the next person.
Yeah, excuse me, my progression has been going pretty well. Um, this is my second time in the class, so pretty much just building upon the foundation from the previous class, and actually putting more effort into it this time. I say I watched a YouTube video um, a bit last week, so and asking more questions, getting more detail in the things. So I think my progression is going pretty well. Getting a good understanding of what it is to be a Scrum Master.
Anything that has you confused or anything that you need a little bit of clarity on, or what does that look like for you?
At the moment, no questions. I'm not confused about anything. You and Coach Josh have been doing a great job of informing us, giving us the information that we need, and giving good analogies as well. So I have no questions at the moment.
Perfect. And if you could pass the ball, I see somebody wrote in the chat, and if you can't speak, go ahead and utilize the chat. But the question is, how's your progression been? Have you had any questions, comments, and concerns? Anything that you need to clarify from what we went over so far? Of course, we went over all the Scrum ceremonies, the Agile Manifesto, Scrum Guide 2020. This is everything that kind of set us a strong foundation from the last two classes. So that's the question. And please go ahead and pass the ball.
Okay, I'll pass the ball to Abla.
As far as progress, I feel like I'm on track. Just like Andre, this is a bit of a refresher for me too. I have been working more on like studying some interview questions. Like I told you, I've been in the process, trying to master the interview process. So going through this course again just helps me touch up on key points to be able to sell myself in a better way. I know I missed part of the class earlier today, so I'll go ahead and watch the recording to know what we went over, so that way I can have more questions for you. But so far, I do like how detailed you guys are as far as making sure we get the foundation of Scrum, and that's been really helpful so far.
Right here, Abla. Thank you.
I'll pass it off to Shai. Sorry if I said your name wrong.
It looks like we have a response in the chat. Progression has been good in terms of watching videos and combination of how detailed you guys are teaching us. I'm understanding everything well. Awesome. Glad to hear that. Has everyone actually had a chance to go through and read the Scrum Guide 2020 fully?
I had a chance, but I haven't done it.
Not fully.
Okay.
I only read a few pages from before.
Well, we appreciate your transparency. I would definitely say go ahead and please try to knock that out sometime this week. Again, it's 17 pages. So if you can break it down into 2 or 3 pages at a time, that will be awesome. But that will definitely help you and support you with your foundational understanding in addition to everything that we're doing here. You might have some questions that come about after reading it. And if so, then we can definitely address those there. But I think that will probably be the next best step. Even before you start looking at the vocabulary, you want to go through and read the Scrum Guide 2020 fully. And then you would probably want to start picking up on the vocabulary portion of that. Yeah, it's essential. If you have any concerns or whatever after reading that, we can definitely address them, but we definitely need to get that read so we can have further conversations based on that.
Yeah, and I definitely agree with Coach Josh. Like, we will be able to help each other out. Like, not only will you be able to correct us, but vice versa if we all are on the same playing field. I don't know how many of us are sports fans, but Kobe Bryant, he talked about this. You know, what set him apart from other players is he practiced every day. Not only did he practice every day, he practiced 3, 4 times a day. If this is something you want, you got to put that work in. Those 10,000 hours of, of practice. Practice makes perfect. The person who's not practicing, they're going to continue to get left behind. That person that's practicing every day, they could be at 0. They literally, they can know less than me. But if they're putting in more work, more practice than me, they can be an agile master, a scrum master within the next 6 months, 1 year, and probably, you know, challenge me on so many different levels. But because I've been in the game and because I've been practicing, I'm not here to let nobody show me up. So I say all that to say, like, you got to have that same mentality, that mama mentality when it comes to uh, just really honing in on this skill set, because even though this is new, or sometimes this may be a refresher to some of you all, at the end of the day, um, it still needs that practice. Like I said, even myself, I've been in the game for quite some time now. I still read that Agile manifesto, and I'll read things. Oh, okay, I didn't even pick that up at first, or I didn't notice that. So you're really going to, a lot of these concepts that we keep on have been preaching to you for the last 2 weeks is going to conceptualize for you once you really start, taking advantage of those 2 free guides. Like we really mentioned that everything that we're doing, we're just building on to those 2 documents. That's where we're getting all of our information from. We're not taking it out of thin air. We're literally using that document and our experiences to cultivate this class for you. So Just want to let y'all know that. And we do have we did have a Kahoot, but because a lot of you all haven't read well, it looks like at least two, maybe all three of you all haven't read that document. I strongly encourage everyone, please read those two documents, because we're going to start off the class next week, or we're going to probably right after our break do a Kahoot, and it's strongly correlated to those documents. On top of that, yeah, as mentioned, I do want to um, give you that vocab document. So those who haven't read it, you got double homework this week. But once again, like Coach Josh mentioned, most important is that are those two documents. The vocab is just, it would all make sense once you continue to hone in on your skill set. So please go ahead and utilize the chat when you get a couple seconds. Drop your email address so I can add you to this. It's a Google document, so you'll be able to as long as you have a Google website, a Google email, you'll be able to access this document. So go ahead and drop that. Okay, I got one email already. Perfect. And like I said, continue to send them. That is pretty much today's class. Then I'm going to stop recording. So if anybody has anything that they need to talk about off script, let's talk about it. Let me stop the recording right now.